Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to August 2020 Development Discourse. My name is Patrick Okigbo, Principal Partner next year. I'm super excited to be having this conversation today. My guest is seen as one of the most visionary leaders we've had in Nigeria in at least the last 2 decades. He got into public office at right about the age of 30, became a board member at Voice of Nigeria, and commissioner in Cross River State, commissioner for finance, budget and planning at 31. And by 36, he became governor of Cross River State and transformed the state in many ways, in education, urban renewal, tourism, increased the state's federal allocation, IGR, and so on. Donald Duke, welcome to the conversation.
Thank you, Patrick.
I hope to cover a broad range of topics with you this evening. But the core objective is, how do we get big things done in government? Knowing that we have to face a lot of challenges working within the public service, etc. So many of the discussions we're going to have is around how do we conceive these ideas, how do we deliver these ideas, and how do we deliver results? But before we get into all of that, I'd like to start with the youth getting into politics. In Nigeria today, we've got a lot of young people. It's a very young population. Most of the young people realize that we have to get some of these old bald heads, as you and some of your colleagues referred to them back then, out of
politics. We're getting there now.
In Nigeria, we've got the bill, the act actually, not too young to run. It's passed into law so young people can run. But is that enough? Is that enough? What else should the young people be doing at this point to really effectively win power? Given that political power is never given, it's taken. What should they be doing to make a good, effective challenge for power and win power?
Well, Patrick, let me start this way. It's imperative that all of us in society are involved in the politics and the overall development of our nation. It's not for a gender or a group of people, young, old. As long as you're a stakeholder in that society, you have to get involved. More so for the younger ones, because they have a longer time to stay around and they're going to inherit the mess if they stay out of it. So they've got to get involved. I found the not too young to rule thing quite, because it's all about the age at which you can stand for elective office. You can vote at the age of 18 and you can stand for elective office, I think, into the House of Reps from the age of 30 or thereabouts, and the House of Assembly from the age of 25 or 24, I'm not sure. So I didn't think it required a specific bill to invite young people to partake. We have to be involved in our environment. I was in a university in Nigeria at Zaria. I was a member of the Students' Union. I was involved, and I love history. History gives you an incredible vista of the politics of your environment. But no one is going to invite you, as you said, no one is going to invite you on the table of politics. You just got to get involved. How you get involved, there's no one way into it. I got involved in the politics of Cross River State by supporting an individual in 1991 who was running for the governorship of the state. And I walked up to him and said, I'd like to support you. What can I do? I mean, basically, what can you do? I didn't have a political base or anything of the sort. So what can you do is go and bring money. Let's do this business, okay? So I went looking for money and fortunately was able to raise some amount of money and all that. But in the course of it, we had a lot of discussions on what I thought society should be doing and that. And I think he found my views quite interesting and insisted that I be part of his cabinet. That wasn't my plan. My plan was to have a friend in government, and what most young people want to do at that age. I was 29 going on to 30 at this time. You just want to do business, right? So if I had a friend, and I just wanted, because I grew up literally all my life in Lagos, so I wanted to have a closer link with my state. Mm-hmm. The gentleman insisted that I must be in his government after he won the election, that is. And for 3 months, he didn't set up a cabinet. And this is quite interesting because he went to your uncle, Patrick Okigbo, and who was like a father to me, and he knew I couldn't say no to Pius. And Pius called me up one afternoon and said, Donald, you're going to Calabar to resume work as Commissioner for Finance. And I said, Uncle, I'm not going to do that. He says, well, you have no choice. I'm giving you an order, it's an instruction. But, you know, and that set off a lot of things, and I have no regrets there for taking that decision and for being instructed to take that decision. But, you know, you've got to get involved. You've got to support someone, or you throw yourself out there. And if you have the wherewithal to organize yourself, it doesn't have to be a commissioner. You can run for the House of Assembly. But I want to caution here, when you run for an elective office, you must have something to give. I've had young people come to me who have had literally no experience in life. They're just straight out of school and they want to go to the House of Assembly. They want to go to this. They want to be a councillor. They want to be chairman of a local government. And I asked the first question, what are you going to offer, right? We're not going, we're not guinea pigs, right? You're not going to learn on the backs of this. So start gradually. Maybe you need to go into the private sector, get some work done, know how society works. Because if you get there as a councillor, and I've seen this happen over and over again, they have absolutely nothing to offer. And that's the bane of the third tier of governance in Nigeria, which is the most important tier of governance. It's populated by folks who have absolutely nothing to offer. So it's a money-making venture for them. They go in there for 3 years, they put enormous pressure, threatening the chairman of the local government, impeachment and this, make a lot of money. Usually they don't come back for a second term. And unfortunately, them going forward, because they're so spoiled, their first job was extortion, literally.
Yep.
So they don't have any work ethic, which is important. And that's the most important tier of governance, which is what we know. So I used to encourage retiring public servants, right? Go chair local government. Having worked about 30, 35 years in the civil service, you know the system properly. You come with a certain level of maturity and all that, because you need mature people to run the 774 local governments in this country, not folks who see politics as an occupation. It is a vocation.
But
a vocation that you want to give your best to.
Isn't that the dilemma, dilemma that the young people face in Nigeria? So it's either you go try to make a career first, which is not easy, or you get into politics. How do you advise they balance that out? Because if you choose to pursue a career, it might take you 5 years, 10 years down the line before you kind of figure yourself out. Or do they go straight into politics, not having any experience? How do you balance that out? And I think we lost the video, actually.
Have we lost the video?
Yes. Yes, back on.
You're back. Okay, good. How do we balance that out? It's not cut and dry. Each person has to identify where he stands in all this. How much experience do you have? If I left university and I wanted to become a chairman of a local government, how much do I know? What experience am I bringing to bear? It's a bit more than passion. Passion has to be guided by something. The folks who carried out the coup in 1966 had a lot of passion, but had no experience, right? Because that led to so many other things, Yeah. I admire the passion of youth, but you cannot, passion is like a fuel, right? It has to be based on an engine that you can control. So I am a beneficiary of young people in government. But I had some background going into it. I had worked as a lawyer both in the United States and in Nigeria. I'd done business. So when I came in at the age of 30, going on to 31 as commissioner, I had some background. Like you said, I was a member of a federal board, right? It wasn't the richest background, but I had quite a challenging background in the private sector, okay? And I think the private sector, when properly utilized, is a good bearing in the public sector, because the private sector is geared towards getting things done.
Results.
And results. And that's what you require in the public sector also, which unfortunately is not seen as the priority it ought to be. So I came in with that, but immediately after that, after being commissioner for about 2 years, in '93, Abacha came on board. I was elevated and made a member of the National Economic Intelligence Committee, and concurrently a member of the National Economic Council for the country. So I was working with Professor Aluko, who was an incredible and experienced gentleman and the economist. And so I worked in this committee, and there were about 7 of us on the committee, and we were literally the cabinet of the country, because every memo that went to council was sent to us for our views. Okay, so having been commissioner in the state for about 2 years, right, and it was not just finance, it was budgeting and planning and all that. I was now lifted to the national level. We did all the budgeting, we went through memos, we gave our views, we would summon ministers and literally interrogate them, because we were economic intelligence and all that. And General Abacha depended on us a lot. He had a lot of confidence in Professor Aluko. So I had that vista of exposure. So going into government or being governor at the age I became governor, I had quite a rich background already. Now, mine could be said to be unique, and I don't expect every young man to go through that, but at least let him have a work ethic before he goes into politics. It's important. Work ethic is, you have to wake up, go to work at a particular time, there's stuff to be done within that time, and there are results that are expected. Most folks, and I've seen this in government, the young political guys going into government, they really don't know what is expected of them. They see the glamour. I am this, I am that, but they don't deliver. And that's why mentoring is absolutely important, right? Don't throw them down the drain, bring them up, because they will inherit this system. So whether you like it sooner or later, and you've got to prepare them for it.
Correct. And I think this is a good place to segue to you then become governor. So a group of young people, hold a couple of meetings, agree that it's time to wrestle power, in Cross River. Some of the names include yourself, Lil Imoke, Gershom Bassey, and then you arrive in Calabar. I expect you had some development agenda when you were running for governor. When you got there, can you walk us through, how you then translated that agenda into a plan that was bought into by the people of the state, especially seeing that you didn't have quite a political base in the state when you became governor? You were seen like a Lagos boy. So how did you walk the dynamics of that?
When you start off by saying 3 folks got together, it's a tale of a Hollywood movie. But literally, that's what happened. And it all happened in Lagos. We were friends, and we were all, I guess, politically alive. Gershom Bassey was involved with the campaign of Clement Ebri in 1991.
Yes.
I had introduced him to Clement, and he got involved just like myself. Lil later on joined and became a senator. He's, I believe, the youngest senator Nigeria has ever produced. He was senator at the age of 30. And between us, Lil is 3 months older than I am. I'm 6 months older than Gershom. So we're about the same, we're just contemporary. And Gershom is someone I've known all my life, literally.
Yeah.
All my conscious life, I've known him. So we got into this thing. But, initially it wasn't that we would produce a governor and all that. That happened. We felt that we had been quite successful in our private life, and that we should set up an agenda in our state, determine or help determine who would become governor and what we expect of that person, right? That was it. We didn't go in there and say, look, we're going to rule the state. Of course, they saw us as the Lagos Brigade. They didn't pay attention to us. But I guess we appealed to the younger people, because the system in operation in Cross River at the time, you had 3 elderly gentlemen, Anthony, Ani, M.T. Mbu, and Joseph Wires, and they control the politics of the state. And it was like a command structure. This is what we want, and that's what, So it was like a revolution. And they found in us folks who had the resources and the determination. And so they they came, they supported us, and we led the so-called revolution. It was then that it was said that since I had more experience in the structure of the state, the economy of the state and all that, and more experience in governance, that I should lead. So that's how it happened. Now, the first thing I did when it was, we put up a blueprint. This was 2 years before the elections of what Cross River ought to be. And that was my responsibility. Each sector, education, health, infrastructure. What is the overall vision of the state? You take a SWOT analysis. What's your strength? What's your weakness? Obviously, a strength.
Who was involved at this point in putting it together?
I did. I put most of it together, but okay. I had to share. I put it together, then shared it with a trio, right? Okay. Then it went to a larger group and all that, because I wanted a lot of criticism around it. So we took about 10 sectors: education, health, infrastructure. I introduced tourism, and which was quite novel at that time, because the concept of tourism was having expatriates walk around your cities. And I said, no, I mean, I believe if only fools go where only fools thread where angels dare. If your people don't walk around, why do you expect people to come from other countries? And besides, tourism involving expatriate is beyond the shores, beyond the control of the state, because there are visa policies and all sorts of things. What we wanted was, look, Cross River is located at the end of Nigeria. It's on the southeastern coast of Nigeria. Right at the end, we border Cameroon. In fact, it's the end of West Africa, I tell folks.
Yeah.
How do we get people to go there? It's not Benin, where people can just, I'm going to Onitsha, I'm going to Port Harcourt, I'll stop in Benin, have lunch with you, and go on and spend the night. You only go to Cross River because you have business to do in Cross River. So how do we make it alluring enough for people to leave wherever they are and want to go there? And so that was the plan. Folks thought it was a bit far-fetched. It wouldn't happen. Agriculture was a given. We have, at the time, before we lost Bakassi, we had 23,000 square kilometers of land. We're now down to 20. And we have from the mangrove to the temperate up at Obudu, in between we have the sub-savanna. I mean, it's an amazing landscape. However, it's because it's sparsely populated. With all that land, there are only 3 million of us there. You can have huge plantations, right? And so we were going to be number one. Our plan was take 2 crops, take oil palm and take cocoa, right? And we're going to be number one in both. We achieved number one status in oil palm, and I think we're number 2 in cocoa now. We could do a lot better than we're doing, and I'll come to that. But that was the plan. And so you take each sector, you take health, for instance, right? You need a primary healthcare center in every ward. There are 194 wards in the state. You need a general hospital in every local government, right? And a tertiary institution in every senatorial district. And you need to set up standards. What constitutes a primary healthcare center? Are you going to have a doctor? Are you going to have midwifery and all that? Because that's where public health should be dealt with. And if you can deal with it there, and you look at what are your public health challenges between malaria, typhoid, and stuff like that. How do we deal with those things? How do we get health personnel who would go from house to house and check stuff like that? So we had that for the 3 sectors. We had that. Policy on education, for instance, was not more than 30 children in a class, 3 arms to a class, 6 classes. This is a secondary school. That's 540 students in a school. It's a manageable number. The principal knows everyone. Primary school is 300, 20 to a class, 6 classes, 300 students. So
how did you hope to fund this? Because at the time, Cross River State, your revenues, your allocation from the federal government was very low. So what gave you the confidence to come up with these types of plans, knowing that you didn't have the money for it?
This is the brilliance of the private sector. The private sector, you dream, then you look for the money. Right? In the public sector, you look for the money, then you start to dream. And that's why it never happens, right? You have to have the dream, the vision. Then if you have the vision and it's a laudable one and you have the passion, right? You'll find the money, right? Once we got in, we were talking to DFID, we became the darling of the
development agencies.
Development agencies. USAID. USAID trained our tourism operators. USAID literally developed the tourism in Cross River State. They sent personnel who were up on the ranch, training the young folks up on the ranch. The head of the tourism bureau was a Filipino that was paid by USAID, right? All that development, all the stuff about the carnival and all that, they did all that. We sent about 30 or 40 folks to Jamaica for training, right? We were able to get Prime Minister Patterson, PJ Patterson, the Prime Minister of Jamaica at that time. He went to a school called Calabar College in Jamaica, right? And I was able to get it. Look, you've got to pay back for the name Calabar, right? Now, Jamaica has the most advanced tourism institute in the world. Then we got in touch with WTO, the world, and they sent folks over. They sent we were having like every fortnight, a team of about 5 people coming in for almost a year, training folks, training taxi drivers, training hoteliers and all that. So we had the dream, then we had to package it. The same thing with education. We said, for instance, you don't have bad students, you have bad teachers, right? Mm-hmm. You've got to motivate the teachers. So we took them off the tax break. Teachers were no longer paying taxes in the state. If you work in an urban center, we give you 10,000 naira allowance. If you work in a rural, we give you 15. Then every 2 or 3 years, you take an examination to sort of renew your license to teach. They didn't like all that because, I think University of Ibadan set the exams and all that. But hey, if you're not ready for this, then you start paying your tax.
Yeah.
And when we took them off the tax break, we literally doubled their salaries. Others wanted it, the doctors wanted it. We said, no, we're all where we are because we had teachers. So we're only going to do it for teachers. But it motivated them, and you could see the results were eminent, very evident in WAEC and all that. We made textbooks freely available to every student, primary and secondary in the state. So even if you don't have a good teacher, at least you can read.
Okay, so I can understand that you now have the vision, you've got a way to get development partners to work with you, but you still had to work with a public service, right? Yeah. Where their pay is low, the motivation levels are quite low. How did you get the state? Because you have to rally these people. How did you get them to buy into that vision and to work with you to deliver all of these programs?
Patrick, a vision is hollow if it remains your vision. You can conceive it, but it has to be embraced by the public service and ultimately the people, right? For the public service, it's quite difficult because they're quite sort of stunted in their thinking. Okay, so you have to apply the carrot and the stick. Hey guys, I sat down with literally all the directors in the state and everyone from, I think, grade level 12 and above. They are the ones that take the decisions. Mm-hmm. This is where we're going. This is the rationale for where we're going in this direction. And I want your support. Okay, and I appealed to them and explained things to them. For instance, they were used to collecting salaries cash. And I said, no, we can't do that anymore. One of the ways of checking ghost workers is ask everybody to go open an account, right? And the director in charge of your department must sign off that you're a staff. So I think by the time we did that, we had lost about 4,000 staff who supposedly were ghosts. But I found out that the cashiers in the treasury didn't like the system because, you see, if your salary was 340 naira, 50 kobo, they'll tell you that we only have 400 naira, so you go find the change. At the end of the day, you'll forgo about 30 naira. So they were making a lot of money from that. But if I pay directly into your account, you're going to get the exact thing. So they had to understand all these things. And again, sometimes you play Peter against Paul. And that's why I said carrot and stick. They must appreciate that this is where I'm going. And I've explained it to you, the rationale. But if you don't, you either shape in or ship out. Yeah. You either fall in line or you go. And I'll fire you, right? The civil service is very pliable. They're not fools. If they believe that where you're going is the right thing or right direction, ultimately they'll come on board. And they did, big time. Mm-hmm. Big time. Then we introduced, ATMs had just come out at that time, and we were the first state to give credit. You're allowed, because your salary goes into a bank, right? The state guaranteed the bank that you can take 2-3 times. If you were getting, say, 1,000 naira a month, you can borrow up to 3,000 naira, right? Because we are guaranteeing, of course, you're being paid. So they loved it at the end. When they saw the value of what we were bringing, that your salary could be 1,000, but you could live up to 3,000, or depending, and all that, they came on board. Okay. Then the next thing is the public. Mm-hmm. The public has a certain attitude and perception of government, right? Government is a place, if you have a friend, go make some money there, right? Delivery is grammar. That's where they put it. So take, for instance, when we want to do the sanitation of Calabar, there was a lot of resistance. But I said to folks, you can't talk of tourism in a dirty environment. You can't talk of tourism where your healthcare is poor, where education is poor, and all those things. So we started. It was bullish. They resisted, but ultimately they saw the vision in it. They came to appreciate it, and more importantly, they found they could make money off it, and they bought into it. So much so that they took ownership of it. To an extent that if a place was seen to be unsanitary, I would get a call or a text telling me that, Governor, you're slacking. You're not doing enough here. Look at so and so place. So we had sanitary inspectors and all that, but they kept me. Once society takes ownership of it, they put pressure on the government to deliver. The unfortunate thing in our national life is it's always government policy. It has not cascaded down to becoming a national policy, a people's policy. They have not bought into it. So that's why it becomes, and once you get the people to buy into it, governance becomes a piece of cake.
So let's shift gears now. TINAPA, please. Right? So I had a chat with one of our mutual friends, Ferdinand Agu, and he said he was in the meeting where you presented the idea of the TINAPA plan to the Obasanjo government. Everybody was there, and they left. It was almost like they were levitating. They were giddy by the size of this vision, right? And he felt the same way when he saw the physical manifestation of the plan, that it mirrored the vision, but then the plan failed. So what happened? What happened to TINAPA? Was it a problem with the conceptualization of the idea? Is it a white elephant project? Or why couldn't this Cross River State deliver on such an idea? So if you can just quickly run us through the idea behind it and where it failed.
Okay. I get so many questions on TINAPA, so I'm being careful here. The vision was very simple. It's all about traffic, bringing people and giving them cause to want to come to Calabar. So why do most Nigerians travel out of the country? Shopping. We don't have, for us, vacation is not going to Seychelles and playing by the seaside. Vacation is walking along the streets of Oxford or go to Dubai. That's our vacation. That's how we understand it. So, but how many of us can go there? So what the plan was very simple. Build this super mall, business, and also leisure, because TINAPA has movie theaters, movie studios, water parks, casinos, all that in this environment, but huge shopping malls, right? 4 emporiums, each one is the size of 2 football fields, right? Now, everything that goes in there is duty-free, everything. So you would have all the high street stores on Oxford Street in Dubai there. We had Mango, we had Zara. All these guys were excited because they know that Nigeria, we're just consumers, okay? So we had 54 line shops. We had Walmart, absolutely interested. They wanted to use TINAPA as their anchor point in all of Africa. On the back of TINAPA, they bought Massmart in South Africa. Okay, Massmart owns game, right? Because everywhere they go, they don't, they have a local name. In London, for instance, it's Asda. Asda is Walmart. Walmart is only used in continental America. So they bought Massmart at $2.8 billion, but their interest was TINAPA, using it as an anchor to trade from Angola to Senegal. And you know that Calabar is smack in the middle of Angola
Right
and
in the middle.
Senegal, right? And they were very excited. They wanted 2 emporiums. We said, no, we're only going to give you 1. Not long after, I got a strange call from Home Depot. Home Depot heard that Walmart was coming. We gave them an emporium. ShopRite was coming. We gave them half an emporium.
Did they
it was too
sign
loud
up?
for them.
Did they sign up for
All
it?
signed up. All signed up. In fact, Walmart went further, and they wanted 100 hectares of land at the port, because we got President Obasanjo to designate the Calabar port a free port, and we got Maersk Line. They signed up with Maersk Line to bring goods in and out of the port. They wanted 100 hectares of land to build warehouses so they can do the consolidation and distribution. So they bring all these goods into this warehouse. They distribute those that will be going to other countries. The back to that is they're also going to develop they prefer getting as much as they can locally.
Correct.
Okay. So it's almost a 50-50 thing. A lot of goods come from out, and they develop a lot of stuff, outlets for local manufacture. This is all good.
Why did it all go wrong?
Because you asked, was it a white elephant? It's not a white elephant. You can't talk of a white elephant in this time, day and age, when people are going to the moon and talking of going to the Mars and setting things to the sun. There's nothing like a white elephant. It was just that there was a failure of continuity. That's all. It's as simple as that. We haven't come to a point where we see governance or government as shifts, right? So my administration has finished its shift. The next shift comes in. It would continue largely from where we stopped and try and better, right? It doesn't stop you from doing your own thing, but you don't abandon what is already on ground, because it wasn't Donald Duke's money that we used in building TINAPA. In fact, unfortunately for the state, they're still paying for TINAPA, right? And the plan was, as soon as Walmart comes in, we would quote TINAPA in the stock market. And with the Walmart involved, you could be sure that the stock market would have taken it all off and wiped, and there would have been no debt.
Yeah.
But that didn't happen. So it was a failure of continuity, right? A failure of governments to appreciate that each administration is a shift from the previous one. We have this attitude that I am smarter than my predecessor, which is it's fault. I mean, you talk of TINAPA being abandoned. What would you say about Ajaokuta? Ajaokuta, in terms of cost, is about 20 times the cost of, or 10 to 20 times the cost of TINAPA. We abandoned it. It's for steel. We have iron ore at Alaja. We have a gas pipeline, because what is steel? Steel is energy and ore. We have a gas pipeline. We have the ore. Yet we abandoned it, and we're a net importer of steel.
So I'll come back to this question on succession and how that happens. But some of the stuff we read in the papers about TINAPA was the state could not continue because it lost its oil wells to Akwa Ibom, and that the arithmetic, behind TINAPA was built on the state being able to pay down some of the loan from its oil proceeds or its share of allocation. So can you effectively blame the subsequent governments if indeed they lost, the oil wells, at no fault of theirs?
Absolute hogwash. Absolute hogwash. TINAPA was fully built, right? It just required carrying on the program, getting Walmart as the anchor tenant, Home Depot on the back of that, right? And quoting it in the stock market. It required nothing. Now, I'll tell you something. Do you realize that River State has more equity in TINAPA than Cross River State government? Most of the banks at the time had about 5% equity in TINAPA. So we were not even the single largest shareholder. River State is the single largest shareholder. There are a few individual shareholders, and majority of the banks have shares. UBA, they all have GTB, they all have shares in TINAPA, okay? It had nothing to do with the oil wells. We lost the oil wells 2-3 years after I had left office, right? And the oil well issue, again, was failed politics. I'll just in a minute, I'll explain it to you. Those wells were acquired, 76% wells were acquired while I was governor. There's a whole story behind the acquisition, but we really had to fight. And that's what led to the onshore-offshore battle right? Where Akwa Ibom lost all her wells, right? And they had to come to terms. What Akwa Ibom has today is purely a political decision, right? But legally, they have no oil wells because they're all offshore. Now we have the 76 oil well. The judgment of the Supreme Court was any well northwards of the southernmost tip of the Bakassi Archipelago is onshore, termed onshore. So we had 76 wells. When we lost Bakassi, the alignment, our border alignments changed, and those wells fell within Akwa Ibom. I had a meeting with my successor, and I said to him, plead double jeopardy. We can't lose the land and lose the resource. Besides, Akwa Ibom, there's a precedent. Akwa Ibom's wells are all political decisions, right? The same can also apply to us because we'll be losing a big chunk of our land and also losing the wells. But he insisted on going to court. And when he went to court, the court applied the legal thing, taking the demarcation of the borders, and that's how we lost it. I had said to him, do the negotiations first and go to court as a last resort. And even when they went to court, they didn't plead the principle of double jeopardy. To be fair to Godswill Akpabio, who was governor at the time, he was very willing, right, that we should have the wells. But he was not able, as a governor, to hand over Akwa Ibom property to another state. He said, let it be a political decision taken at the level of the president. Well, we didn't do that. We went to court. When we lost in court, then we went to the president. And Jonathan, who was president at the time, said his hands were tied by the court decision. But I think a government that is serious can still go to court, right, and ask that it should be revisited on the grounds of double jeopardy. But that's a story for another day. So it had nothing to do with that. It was just a failure of continuity of process. You see, where agencies like IFC, right, KPMG, right, even the World Bank endorse a project, there's a lot of thinking that goes into it, right? TINAPA didn't start in my second term. It was completed, it was commissioned on the 22nd of April, 2007. But I started it in second year in office. There's a lot of paperwork, a lot of grounding that went into it. We expected 3 million visitors annually to come into the state on the back of TINAPA. If each one spent 100,000 naira shopping, accommodation, feeding, transport, that amounts to 300 billion naira at that time in the economy of Calabar and environs. The multiplier effect was like almost times 4, which is like 1.2 trillion. Now you can imagine that kind of money circulating. In fact, in anticipation of that, people were buying land, people were building hotels. There was a boom in Calabar. The in thing was to have a second home in Calabar. It was a lovely place to live. It was secure, it was safe, okay? But we dropped, it's like a relay. Governance is like a relay. We dropped the baton.
Quick question. You've had time now to reflect on TINAPA. Do you see a way out? You know, in how can the states sweat that asset, either return to the original vision or rework the vision, but basically sweat the asset and make it help Calabar and Cross River generate its economy?
AMCON under Mustafa Chikiobi had a meeting with me once. By this time, AMCON had taken over TINAPA because there were loans, I think, from Union Bank and all that. And they asked, how can we remedy this? It's such a great vision. What do we do? I didn't have the courage to go back to Walmart. The folks I dealt with had since moved on. And I think it left a sour taste in their mouth. And, you know, this concept of doing things in Nigeria is so cumbersome and difficult. There was another group, which was a backup group at the time called T5, 555. T5 owns the 5 largest malls in North America. Mall of the Americas in Minneapolis, the American Dream, Edmonton Mall in Canada, have one in Canada, in California. They're big, and they wanted TINAPA. I said to Mustafa and the team, Belgore, who was chairman of AMCON at the time, that I think we should approach them. We went to the United States. We met with them. They were very excited. They put up a team that would come. They guaranteed that all the line shops and the emporiums will be taken over. This was their guarantee and would achieve the dream. But you know, the political will was lacking in Cross River. Actually, the government wrote a letter to AMCON in writing saying they were no longer interested. AMCON was, look, we don't want to force your hand to do
Cross River?
Of Cross River State, yes. In writing, wrote to AMCON saying, we're no longer interested in this. AMCON says, okay, if you don't want to do this, how are we going to get our money, right? The only reason we want to complete it and get it to work is so we can get the money out of it. It was towards the end of the previous administration. And so it was hanging. And not long after, Mustafa himself left and a new group came in. And the new group by Kuru also invited me and asked me the same question. But they don't, and Kuru admitted that they don't see the political will from the state government. And this makes it very difficult. They want to work in partnership with the state government. The will is there. We got AfriExim out of Cairo. They were going to fund the rehabilitation of the entire place because trade finance is smart up, it's square within AfriExim's mandate. So it was perfect for them. They were going, so we got the builders, Julius Berger. It was so well built, it wasn't going to cost much to get the place back in good shape and all that. But AfriExim was going to fund that to bring it back to new so that when 555 takes over, they will do, you know, they're still willing to come.
Okay,
they are
okay,
still
so
willing. I give that to them.
So again, let's come back to the, you know, to the fundamentals. If the projections were to get 3 million visitors in, how are they going to get there? You know, the roads are not good leading into the state. So you know, my question is, was there any effort in your time subsequently for the governors of the region to get together and say, we've got to fix the East-West Highway as a way to, you know, jumpstart our economy? Have you had that kind of conversation, and why hasn't that happened?
Oh yeah, you know, there was a Blaze Commission, right? By, you know, which was, it's an acronym for
Joe Keshi, Ambassador Joe Keshi.
Joe Keshi was heading that. Yeah. The Blaze Commission was going to look at all those things because the plan was every state should do something, right? Let's integrate the regional economy. My plan was, listen, I don't have any oil. I had 76 oil wells in my time. I didn't make more than 250 million a month from those oil wells, which is really on the small scale. But I was going to create an environment where all this money was going to be spent in Cross River, all the money from the oil producing states and beyond. Now, two things. One, I wasn't looking at TINAPA. We weren't looking at TINAPA as a Niger Delta thing or a Nigerian thing. We're looking at the entire sub-region, right? So fortunately, there's an airport there. Walmart said it was too small for a cargo, but Akwa Ibom was building a long runway next door. So we incorporated that, okay? As at the time I left Cross River, Calabar was the fourth busiest airport in Nigeria. It was Lagos, Abuja, Port Harcourt, and Calabar. We had 9 flights in and out daily. So passenger traffic wasn't a problem. You had traveling in from any part of West Africa was visa-free, okay? So that also wasn't a problem. You could have aero contractors or any of these airlines go to Accra, bring folks in and all that. So bringing in the traffic was not a problem. The roads in Cross River were pretty good, right? Today they're horrendous.
Yes, but
within Cross River,
yeah.
Yes. But again, we now had the basis to put pressure on the federal government to fix the roads. Because, you know, when Walmart came in, they did a tremendous survey. They said, look, the roads are not very good. The airport, the runway is only 2.4 kilometers. We need a minimum of 3 kilometers. And we had to find answers for those things. One, we got President Obasanjo, who was instrumental to bringing Walmart in the first place. And he gave him his word that he'll fix the federal roads leading into the state. Akwa Ibom was building an airport, which initially the federal government was against, because there was a plethora of airports coming up all over the place. But we convinced the government at the time that we required that airport for TINAPA. So they let go. They weren't going to license the airport, just like the Bielsa airport has not been licensed, right? They weren't going to license it, but I put a lot of pressure on Obasanjo that you've given us a federal guarantee. We've got to make this thing work. Of course, the Calabar port was largely idle. So everything would come in place. And the plan was within 5 years, 3 to 5 years, all that will be in place. He had given us we were also going to build a new runway in Akamkpa, purely for cargo. But don't forget that if the road between Calabar and Uyo is good, Uyo is just 45 minutes from Calabar.
So that's my question. My core question is, why couldn't the governors in the region come together to create a regional development plan? That I know they tried to do it with the Brace Commission. Why didn't that work? Because what I'm pushing for is, how do we get to a state where regions begin to take ownership of their development, regions and then states?
Patrick, you'll need to speak to the governors. You know, not long after we handed over, a completely new class of governors came in. We had a fairly integrated team. Not only were we friends, we discussed this, you know, this whole thing about true federalism and all that started in our time. And we saw the need to integrate. The next class of governors, unfortunately, were not as passionate, okay? And with each class, it even gets more fragmented. I'm not sure that this class of governors even have regional meetings. We used to have meetings almost every other month in Port Harcourt, going around the various capitals. We used to have Southern governors meeting. The North would have Northern governors meeting. Then we'll have a governors meeting. We'll have South-South governors meeting. So there was a lot of talk of integration. You see, the South-South is a unique region. The Southwest can have Amotekwa and all those things. They speak one language. The Southeast can have whatever they want to, or they speak, what's it called, Ohanese and all that. They speak one language. In the South-South, we go for meetings, we speak in English, maybe Pidgin English at best. The only commonality in the South-South is that, one, we're a minority, right? We can only get leverage by coming together. And two, we're constantly discussing oil, which is boring. Now, when we discuss oil, Cross River and Edo State are out of the picture. The big boys, the big four, Bayelsa, Rivers, Delta, and Rivers, they take over the conversation, okay? And at one time, they wanted to even split the Niger Delta Commission to only take care of themselves. And, you know, so it's a different zone. It's not, there's no affinity born out of ethnic unity. It's what brings us together in the South-South is fear of domination by the others. So we band it together and say, okay, let's talk.
Okay, so I have a question. We have a mutual friend who I'm not going to name, but he said, you know, Cross River was an experiment in succession planning that kind of puts doubts in his mind if succession planning can work within Nigeria. So you had a group of people who came together, wrestled for power, got it. The idea was Donald Duke would be governor for a period, Liel would do his turn, maybe Gershom Bassi would take over, and that would give a period of like 20, 30 years of commitment to a vision. But it didn't work. People who share probably the same types of experience, you know, educated, learned, etc. Why didn't that work? And if it didn't work, what's the hope that would ever have some level of succession planning with commitment to a vision? Because you all worked on that same vision. How come it didn't work?
It's one of those unfortunate stories, you know, even within a family, people disagree and go their separate ways. It's also very painful because I think we stunted the growth of the state. I had the first run. I want to believe I had a good run. Like I said to you earlier, the button was dropped. Politics crept in. The politics of self, not the politics of us as a people. And that's a dangerous politics where, and you can see it playing out in some states, like Edo State now is the politics of self and not the politics of us. That's what happened. That's what crept in. Lil understood the vision. And I'm being blunt here. He understood the vision completely. He had the exposure. He had the means. Unfortunately, I think he fell victim to political jobbers. Oh, Donald has done his own. You better do your own. You know, how can you take this TINAPA dream? It will always be associated with Donald, right? What's your own legacy, right? For me, the legacy is good government. Lil himself said several times that the concept of TINAPA was jointly agreed to. In fact, he went further to say that it was even conceived in his house. So put it into, but these people, and they're, you know, they get to you. They really get to you. They first turn you into a deity, then tell the deity what the deity wants to hear, and manipulate you. It's a reverse mechanism of manipulation. But I think that is what happened. I had a heart-to-heart with him, and I said, listen, we're only going to shortchange the state. If I'm not saying you've got to do everything we agreed, you've got to improve on what we did and all that. You also, we're human beings. You also have to have your own legacy. His own legacy was the International Conference Center in Calabar. Fantastic. It's also tourism related. It brings people. But like I said to him, that center would not work if TINAPA is not working, because having conference centers, there's several dotted all over the country. But what would attract conferees, right, to come to your conference center is because there's the added advantage of shopping, right?
Excellent.
You know, you don't believe it. Look, in this country, there are seminars by government agencies that are held in Dubai, right?
Yeah.
Because what do they want? They want to go shopping. They, you know, bank have their board meetings in exotic places because of that. And I said, if TINAPA were working, that would be the pool for people to use your conference center. And he built a world-class conference center out there. But it's not attracting any traffic because besides the conference center, what else?
Yeah. So
you know, then we had Obudu Cattle Ranch, which by any stretch of imagination was a world-class resort.
Fantastic, but difficult to get.
But we had aircrafts going there. We built an airstrip. In fact, you needed to book 3 months in advance. Correct. To get accommodation. I had gone there once as governor. I couldn't get accommodation. I had to go squat with the general manager of the facility. So we had aero contractors, and I think Overland was trying to get on board to ferry people from and all that. We had a 1.8 kilometer runway. But again, we demarketed it. That's what happened. We stopped marketing the place, and it started deteriorating, and people just let go. You know, we were competing. At the time, at 2007, Patrick, I know you want to say something, but 2007, we had more developed resorts and tourism sites than all of the Republic of Ghana. We had two canopy walkways. We had the second longest canopy walkway in the world after Malaysia, you know, and ours was in a virgin forest. We had all these facilities. We had tree houses. It was amazing, but we let it go. We let it rot. If you don't maintain what you have, it will go down the drain.
We're running out of time, and there's something I really want to talk about, which is Nigeria, right? I want to come out from Cross River and talk about Nigeria. You've thought about running for president. In fact, once I had breakfast with President Obasanjo, and you know, we talked about you and your presidential ambitions, and his words were that your Donald is not ready. You know, his vision is too big. And I've already told you my response to him. But, you know, you've made a few attempts at, you know, running for president, including the last elections. How do you read where we are as a country? What's that thing that stopped us from actualizing that our potential that's there, just within touching distance? And what is it that we need to do to get that?
To get him. You know, when you talk of your vision is too big, this is a country of 200 million people. You style yourself as a giant of Africa, and you're talking about a vision being too big. Then you have a puny country like United Arab Emirates, right? Talking about going to another planet and all that. So I think that's an excuse for not wanting something to happen. Oh, your vision is too big. No. What we are running right now is a mediocre system, right? We are a fifth the population of the entire continent. We are the largest black nation in the world. Nelson Mandela himself said, Africa is going nowhere until Nigeria gets it right. And you're talking of a large vision? No, we have not even started thinking. We're very petty in our sights. Yes, I've come out a number of times. All I'm saying is I'm available. That's all I'm doing, right? And that's all that is expected of anyone. I put myself out there. If you pick me, fine. If you don't, I get on with life. We, the elites, are the biggest problem we have. The elites look for a leader that they can manipulate, okay? And we're petty. You see, we the elites, as long as we have our Forex, we can go abroad with our fancy private jets and all that, and literally live a lifestyle that is pretentious. We forget that we will never, never be accepted in those societies that we dream of. Look at what COVID has done, right? COVID has taught us that if you don't get your health facilities in place, go to the airport. You see a plethora of private jets lying out there. We don't need all those things. We don't pay, the elites don't even pay taxes. We don't collect more than 20% of the tax that we ought to. Let me give you statistics here. Since 1980, our budget has not changed in real terms. Shagari budgeted $25 billion for the 4 years he was president. Till this day, we still budget $25 billion in, whether you call it 10 trillion, by the time you convert it, it still comes back to, so for 40 years, our budget has been stagnant, but our population has almost quadrupled over the period. So we're a nation in regression. And the elites have to come together. It's not a question of whether it's north or south. Yes, it's all nice to know that anyone can be president in the country. And I believe that there are people, quality people anywhere in the country. But it shouldn't be based on primarily on primordial sentiments, right? And manipulative tendencies. Obasanjo was brought in 1999 on manipulative tendencies. But what they forgot that Obasanjo of 79 and Obasanjo of 99 were two different human beings. He had gone through the furnace and he shocked those who brought him in.
Correct.
Okay. And unfortunately for him, and I've had this discussion with him, he tried to do the same thing. The reason he supported Umaru and Jonathan was he wanted two with people, right? And this has always been the bane of our politics. You can't win a championship with third-rate players. You've got to put your best foot forward. And these folks constantly, oh, how loyal will he be? I've heard things like, Donald is too independent to have as a president. Do you want a slave as president, or you want a freeborn as president? So you hear all those kind of things, but it's all you can come up. We can manufacture any reason to suit your argument.
Is there a pathway? So the class of '66, the military boys, we're seeing the last of them.
They should be graduating in 23.
In 2023,
we should be graduating finally.
Naturally, we should see the last of them. But is there a plan? Is there a pathway for maybe not a completely new crop of, politicians or leaders to emerge, but how do we win this power or get people who are development focused, civic minded, trained with the ideas on how to get this thing done? How do they navigate into a position to do it? Is there a plan like you guys had to win Cross River back in '99 that can actually deliver Nigeria?
Patrick, I know of no such plan. I know that we all depend on Providence to bail us out of the mess that we've put ourselves in. But it will require the likes of you and I to get on board. It will require us, the elites that is, to form an army of people who would say, enough of this nonsense. Let's realize our full potential. That critical number, that critical mass isn't there. It would take a lot of suffering, right, for us to get there. Sometimes I ask, have we hit rock bottom? Then I realize that, oh, we've hit the bottom, but there's a basement, okay? And we're still cascading down the basement until get to a point where it is totally rejected. It happened in a way in 15 or 16, okay? But it's, you know, a lot of folks who I know would not have supported Buhari for president felt very disappointed in the Jonathan administration, rightly or wrongly, and felt that if this man has been asking for this for so long, surely he has something to offer. The jury is out whether he has delivered or not. I don't want to judge him, not now at least. But the questions are being asked again, okay? And I hope that we still have about 3 years. I hope that, and it's going to start about 21 going into 22. What you would like to see happen would start about then, and people will start coming together. There'll be blocks. There'll be several blocks in APC, because let's face it, there are only 2 real political parties in this country.
Mm-hmm.
So there'll be several blocks in APC. There'll be several blocks in PDP. There'll be the group asking for North and South. That's where we have to settle that first, right? Mm-hmm. Once we settle North and South, then within the South, are we going East? Are we going West? Are we going South, and all that? Or are we just going to look at the South as a block, okay? But I'll tell you what, whatever you decide, the block that is not producing, which is the North, right? If the North is not producing, they will determine who in the South.
Correct.
Right? And they will be looking for someone whom they feel they can work with. Okay, that's politics. If they're not producing the president, then they want someone whom they feel they can work with. But whoever comes in, there are 3 primary things, and I know you didn't ask this, but I'll tell you, that we've got to address immediately. There's a talk about restructuring. It's important. We restructure our lives on a daily basis. So I don't think we should run away from it. But restructuring is that right now, I think we feel restricted in this whole union. Let's free ourselves so we don't break up, you know? Sometimes even a couple, the husband may say, let me go on vacation so I can just clear my head, right? Okay, so we need a system that allows us to develop at our own pace. That's one. But even as important as that is, we also need judicial reform. One of the biggest problems we have, and we don't realize it, is that our judicial system right now is killing us. You can't go to court and not get judgment in 2-3 years. Look, the politicians have sorted out themselves. From tribunal to Supreme Court, they achieve in 6 months. That is what the whole country should achieve. If you take me to a high court, in 90 days, you should get judgment. If I go on appeal, in 45 days, because at the lower court, all the facts have been established. Appeal is not looking for new facts, it's interpretation of the law. 45 days, right? And I think there should be 2 tiers of appeal, lower appeal and upper appeal. Only cases that have to do with death penalty or constitutionality or within states and federal government and states should go to the Supreme Court. Our Supreme Court is overburdened. If I steal a pen from you, right, I can take you right up to the Supreme Court on a pen that costs nothing. So it's a flawed system. And the first thing you learn in law is justice delayed is justice denied. Correct. Okay? So we need to look at the judicial system. We need to restructure the Constitution to allow us the liberty to express ourselves. And of course, we need to look at our tax base. Okay? We're 200 million people. It's all nice to say we're the largest, but we're not the most productive. The only way we can become the most productive is we've got to look, I tell folks, if you say I have a right to life, then I have a right to earn a living. It's not a privilege. So the government must ensure that every citizen of this country has a job, even if it's to plant trees, even if it's to clear the sewage. I mean, in countries like America, they have parks and gardens just to employ people, cleaning up the place and beautification and all that, because they realize that every citizen has a right to earn a living. Yeah, you have to earn a living. Because if I'm not earning a living, but I have a right to life, then I end up being a thief. Really, can you hold me responsible? I'm trying to earn a living. I'm trying to stay alive, you know? So those are the challenges.
We've unfortunately run out of time, but I want to get one more question in. how's life been, since leaving politics, still playing the sax? What occupies your time these days?
Well, life, one thing, once you leave office, as you make your bed, so shall you lie. It's been interesting. I've gone back to what I was doing in the private sector. I'm actually engrossed and engaged in a project, and it's been on and I've only kept on at it because I'm engrossed in it, the Lagos Cable Car Project, right? I'm one of the promoters of that. And we're almost at that point where it will get it working, investing in a cable car network for Lagos as a means of transportation. So journeys that take an hour or two because of congestion will take a few minutes. Papa to Marina or Oluwole will take you 4 minutes. It's against 1 hour. Papa to Victoria will take you 14 minutes. It's against 1.5 hours. So I like that. It's not only a game changer, but it's also productive and rewarding. So that's what I'm doing most of the time. And I'm a grandfather now, so I'm enjoying grandfatherhood.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you, Donald, for making time to join me on this conversation. Unfortunately, we've run out of time, but I really enjoyed the 1 hour we spent with you, and I wish you the very best in everything.
Thank you, Patrick. And I really want to encourage you what you're doing. I watched your film on the Civil War and what events that led to it. I think we're losing our base. We're not teaching ourselves and the next generation history. And I really admire what you've been doing. I wish you the best. Keep it up.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
And thanks to everyone who joined.